everybody, the mic is back. Happy Valentine's Day and welcome to another Smackdown review here on Wrestling with Regret. My name is Alex, your self-proclaimed Queen of the Ring, and we had a pretty good episode of Smackdown. I do say so myself. Let's just get into it. So we opened up the show this week with a moment of bliss. Now, it took me a while to realize that they are actually doing a parody of a morning show with this segment. Yes, it did take me a while, and it took me a while because they're not doing a good job with it. It just seems like a really bad improv team. I've done improv before. I've taken classes before. I've seen really bad improv scenes, and that reminded me of a really bad improv scene. But they interviewed Carmella. Carmella came out, and Carmella talked about her friendship with Bayley and how much Bayley has changed. And then Bayley comes out, and Bayley has really come to her own with this heel role that she has, this heel role model esque gimmick that she has. She's doing a fantastic job, and they have a little back and forth, and Carmella's like, listen, why don't we just have the match now? And then they do, and it was a fantastic match. It was such a good match. Honestly, match of the night. This was a great match to start off a fantastic. It was a good episode of Smackdown. Maybe not fantastic, but it was a good episode of Smackdown. And it really did help that the crowd was hot. This is probably Carmella's best match to date. My favorite match of Carmella's for sure. But this is definitely Bayley's best match during this whole little title run that she's had. There was a little tiny bit of a botch at the end of the match. I'm not too sure what happened, if Carmella's shoulders weren't on the mat, but Bayley was trying to get her legs up on the rope and, of course, cheat. And she did. She cheated and she won. And this was good. This was good. The ref didn't see Bayley's feet on the ropes. Bayley won. Bayley celebrated by attacking Carmella. But Naomi came out. And Naomi came out to kind of help Carmella, but she mostly got in Bayley's face and started clapping in her face, which I absolutely loved. It was great. She looked fantastic. Her hair always on point. The gear always on point. She looked so good. She's so good. Carmella pushed Bayley onto Naomi, so it kind of seemed like maybe Carmella and Naomi were going to get at it because she pushed Bayley onto her, but they didn't. They squared it off. They were, on the same team. But this was great. This was a great opening segment. The moment of bliss I could kind of do without, but the first match of the night, solid. Following that, we had a handicap match with Apollo Crews teaming up with Shorty G to take on Sheamus. This was a short match, and Sheamus won. There's not really much to say about this match. I mean, the other day I thought, wow, WWE hasn't really done a handicap match in a while, right? When's the next time they're going to do a handicap match? And then they did a handicap match tonight. And then that was it. Following that, we had an interview with Hulk Hogan talking about his induction to the Hall of Fame with NWO. He also talks about Goldberg and his match against The Fiend at the Super Showdown. I didn't really care what Hulk Hogan had to say, and thank God, because Bray Wyatt showed up and in the most amazing way mocked Hulk Hogan with the classic NWO entrance with his own title and ripping up his shirt. And Bray Wyatt totally saved that segment for me. He was going back and forth with Hulk Hogan, saying that Hulk Hogan's next, Goldberg needs to watch out. It was quick. It was short. In and out. Of course, I'm rooting for The Fiend. Also, that segment had so much OK Boomer vibes. It was insane. Following that was my favorite segment of the night, and that was Sami Zayn and Cesaro in the ring throwing on a protest concert, and Sami Zayn had a ukulele and Cesaro had a cowbell. And Sami Zayn claims that they are victims of injustice in the hands of Braun Strowman, Elias, and all of the WWE. I highly suggest after you watch this video, you go and watch that segment because it was great. Sami Zayn, I've been saying it for weeks. He is amazing. Cesaro, even, he doesn't even have to say a word. He reminds me of one of those like cartoon big guy, like Gronk kind of guys where he just doesn't have to say anything. He doesn't even have to really express anything, but his dumbness and his overreaction is just great. Even like overreacting with the cowbell and the cowbell. Sami Zayn just being such a heel and saying that he needs less cowbell instead of more cowbell. So good. And also, you just really love to see when wrestling and pop culture blend together. But before Sami Zayn could even strum a note on his little ukulele, Elias jumps ahead of him and comes out. And this is just a really great back and forth. Also, it does help that the crowd was hot. I feel like this segment would just be like, oh, that was a good segment. But because the crowd was so hot, this segment was elevated to a bit of a different level. Sami Zayn and Cesaro attack Elias. But then Braun Strowman comes out to save Elias, and there was also security guards around the ring, and this was the first time ever that I actually enjoyed Braun Strowman's little runaround gimmick that he's got going on. I didn't really like it before, but now it's all right with me. I absolutely have no complaints about this segment. It was good. I don't think the crowd was obnoxious during the segment either. I think their chants were very appropriate to bleed out the segment a little bit more, and it was very entertaining. Next up is the moment we've all been waiting for. It's the date between Mandy Rose and Otis. Now, all night, we've seen Otis and Mandy Rose get ready. We see Otis having a little pep talk with Tucker, but we also see Mandy Rose waiting in the restaurant for what seems to be a while. If I was on this date and I was waiting in the restaurant, I would have left by now. He took a little too long, but we finally get to the moment. They've been building it up all night. Otis finally gets to the restaurant, but before he got to the restaurant, we see someone's hand touch Mandy Rose's shoulder, and it was Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler came in and swooped up Mandy Rose. Dolph, Mr. Still Your Girl Ziggler, came in and totally destroyed little Otis's heart. So as Otis was walking into the restaurant, he sees Mandy Rose and Dolph Ziggler having a glass of wine and cheersing, and he's super heartbroken. And I was too. Dude, what the hell? We have been building this up for weeks. Weeks and weeks and weeks and all night. And you're telling me that Dolph Ziggler, who we haven't seen interact with that storyline in weeks, comes in and happens to know where this mystery Red Lobster is and interrupts this beautiful Valentine's Day dinner. Aside from being emotional from that little segment, it was pretty entertaining. I didn't expect myself to feel so bad for Otis. Also, the pop that Otis got in Vancouver, everyone was rooting for him to get the girl, and he didn't get the girl, and now everyone hates Dolph Ziggler, which is, yeah, Dolph Ziggler's an asshole. And finally, we have a tag match with The Miz teaming up with John Morrison to take on Roman Reigns and a mysterious partner. But before we find out who the mysterious partner is, John Morrison and The Miz come out and they're talking smack about the Usos, and they say that the Usos have only been here for a month and they didn't even show up tonight, and now they have to face their dumb cousin Roman Reigns. So Daniel Bryan comes out and he is Roman Reigns' mystery partner, but before they start the match, we see King Corbin come down from the audience, and he has a ticket in his hand now because last week he dumped a beer on a fan's head. He was suspended, so he wasn't allowed to come into Smackdown tonight. But that didn't stop him from getting the ticket. And might I add, he got a really good seat. I've sat ringside before, and I've never had a good seat like that. It was one of those seats that they use for commentary. And this is a tiny detail, but I just wish that they would have them actually sit in the crowd. Like, remember when the Radicals debuted and they sat in the crowd? Wasn't that great? I wish they did that. Like, it's just kind of cheesy that it's like, oh yeah, use one of our chairs when he's not even allowed to be there. That's just like a little tiny detail, but it's not a big deal. But moving on to the actual match, it was a good match. There was moments where I was like, wow, Daniel Bryan is fighting John Morrison. It just kind of blows my mind that John Morrison is back in this company, but I feel like John Morrison should not be in a tag team. I don't know. I know that The Miz and John Morrison are a tag team. They're a great tag team. They work well together. I acknowledge that, but I've seen John Morrison be a world champion in Impact in all these other companies, and he's done so well by himself in all these other companies. I just wish that he was by himself for this major company, but that's just me. Anyways, Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan win the match, but Baron Corbin attacks Roman Reigns with his Spectre, and he celebrates in the end on his throne. The guy that wasn't supposed to be at work just magically gets his throne on top of the stage to celebrate and gloat at the end. What a heel. No fucks given. You love to see it. And that was the end of SmackDown this week. Now, what did we actually think of the episode? If I was going to grade this episode, I would give this episode a B. I would give it a B, and I think you kind of had to thank the crowd. This whole show only had 3 matches and a pretty disappointing Valentine's Day date that they were building up for weeks. But yet I was still entertained with this episode because the crowd was so hot for everything. The crowd gave Otis a huge pop. The crowd was so behind Carmella and booing hard for a vicious Bayley. And the crowd was super excited to see Daniel Bryan and even Baron Corbin, King Corbin. Who's ever excited to see him? Also, another con was the end result of that Valentine's Day date. I was so sad. I'm gonna cry for Otis after I stop recording this video. That poor man. All he wants is to be loved. Those are just my thoughts on the episode. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe to this channel, Wrestling with Regret. And if you want to follow me on social media, I'm at _Queen of the Ring on Instagram, and I'm at a Queen of the Ring on Twitter. And if you want to subscribe to my channel, the link is down below. As always, guys, my name is Alex, your self-proclaimed Queen of the Ring, and I will see you next week for another SmackDown review. Bye, guys.